All right, folks, welcome back to the Be the Bright podcast presented by Ridge Supply. My name is Matt Hawkins. I'm the owner of Ridge Supply. This is Jordan Spoon, the man behind our Ridge Supply Arsenal Instagram account, which is our ambassador group. And we're here with our special guest, Backwards Hat Dylan. If you don't know Backwards Hat Dylan, Backwards Hat Dylan is Dylan, but better Dylan. He's a YouTube celebrity. He answers questions like we all think, but no one's really willing to say out loud. So Backwards Hat Dylan, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, you should have had me on sooner. I heard that the first 3 episodes were a snooze fest.
They were. We had nerdy scientific Dylan.
I can't stand him.
Yeah. So Backwards Hat Dylan, we've got some questions for you, and we're going to throw them to you. You haven't heard these questions, and we need some Backwards Hat Dylan advice. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the first question is, what can I do to cram in training for an event that I have in 3 days?
That's literally how I train for every event. Actually, it's always a cram. You know, this year, since there wasn't any racing, a lot of times I knew I was going after a KOM on the weekend. So about Wednesday, I would start training. You know, I'd probably hit a couple Zwift races. You know, maybe on Thursday, I'd go to the gym, make sure my legs are feeling nice and strong for a Saturday KOM session. And then, you know, Friday, just make sure I go out drinking, and then Saturday, go crush it.
It sounds like good advice. Jordan, you got something for Backwards Hat Dylan?
Yeah, we were hoping that maybe Backwards Hat Dylan would push Dylan out and give us a little bit of time. One of Backwards Hat Dylan's YouTube subscribers actually submitted this. Said, "Hey bro, Strava racing is my life. I do it for the kudos and KOMs, but how can I dominate my local Greenway race scene to get respect when people with strollers and dogs are always in my way when I'm crushing it? Should I buy a louder Bluetooth speaker so they hear me, or just get a narrow carbon fiber handlebar to help me squeeze through the crowds?"
This is a great question. It's something that we all deal with as Strava racers. You know, and in case you don't know, Strava is the only race that matters. You know, people talking about you know, training for their A race. I really don't know what they're talking about, because as long as you have that long list of KOMs, I mean, that basically is how you get respect as a cyclist, especially if it's on the Greenway bike path. You know, a lot of times I'm trying to get KOMs during rush hour on the bike path. And I think that the best thing to do is just to yell Strava at the top of your lungs. You know, people who are not cyclists are definitely going to know what you're talking about when you just, you know, are yelling things and flying past them as they're pushing their babies in their strollers and walking their dogs. It does help to have a little bit of technical skills. Maybe, you know, if you have to do a bunny hop over a dog or, you know, swerve around an old lady, that definitely helps.
Totally. I can see that. So I'm trying to get an extra 100 watts on my FTP. What can I do? And I need it quick. What can I do to get my extra 100 watts?
Well, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can test your FTP. And I find that whatever method is going to give you the highest number is probably the most accurate one, you know? So, you know, a lot of people do like a 20-minute or a 2x8 minute. I usually just do a 1x8 minute. And usually after the first 5 minutes, I realize that I went out way too hard and I stop. But then I just pretend that that's my FTP. And it usually is about 100 watts higher than what I previously had it set at. And, you know, then that's, you know, when you go on a group ride and people start throwing out their FTP numbers, that's a good number to tell them.
I hear that. So I'm a big fan of the Zwift workouts, and I was doing a ramp test the other day. Mm-hmm. And are you familiar with the ramp test on Zwift?
Yeah, but you know, usually the number isn't high enough, so I pick a different method.
Right. So it starts off at 100, and it increases by 20 watts per minute. And by the time I got to about 150, the resistance on the trainer just really started clamping down. And I swear I was pushing 850 watts, but it said 147. So why is it that the trainer isn't picking up the same thing that I'm feeling in my perceived exertion?
Yeah, I mean, you always go off of perceived exertion. Whatever you think you're putting out, that's closer to what you're putting out than, I mean, trainers can be wildly inaccurate. Definitely what you think's going on in your head is probably better calibrated than a machine that was specifically designed to measure power output.
Well, that's probably true. That's probably true. That's a heart rate monitor. I heard about that. That's not the heart rate monitor. It's a heart rate monitor.
A heart rate monitor. Yeah, exactly.
So I got one more question for you. Where are you hiding the motor in your bike?
Yeah, so, e-bikes are getting very popular, but, the thing about e-bikes is that if you show up on the group ride with an e-bike, everybody's clearly you're at an advantage. So you got to be very careful about making your e-bike look as if it's a regular bike. And also, if you don't have the top of the line bike, then why are you even going on the group ride? That's immediate disrespect points right there. Generally, close to the bottom bracket is a good place. You got to make sure that it's not creating too much noise.
But if you just put a disc wheel on the back of your bike, then that'll throw people off because there's so much noise from the disc wheel. It'll overshadow the motor.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah.
You need to come, and I think you should relocate because you live in the mountains, but down where we are, where we're flatlanders and all we have is Strava and all we have are segments. The game is played out. The war is played out battle by battle, depending on what the weather is. And so if you were to come here, I think you would see that you would probably have an aero helmet somewhere in your stash. You would drop those full squish bikes. You would have a TT setup. What would be your ideal TT Strava hunting setup for the Flatland, if you could imagine yourself?
Yeah, I think that what I would probably do is I'd get a friend to drive a large van, and I would just stay 5 inches behind his van, and we would hit that Strava KOM. I'd tell him to hit the gas, and I'd hold on, as long as I could.
We know somebody that's got a van.
Yeah. I've also got the Ruckus too. I mean, we could just do some straight up motor pacing. You know what? Right. I actually once, I gave Joe Dombrowski a hard time a couple of years ago because he posted a ride up on Strava motor pacing up in Virginia and had taken a bunch of KOMs. And I just really thought that was not appropriate. I mean, should you make those rides private? Well,
it is appropriate, but you just have to make sure that people don't know that you were motor pacing.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't have said something.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe doesn't.
Don't put motor pacing in the description. Just say that, you're out for a casual recovery ride and you got 40 KOMs.
And he could have pulled it off. I remember Jonathan Valter said that Joe Dombrowski would win the Tour de France every year if it was on a trainer, because I think the numbers that he's throwing around and his power to weight are insane. So we would have all been like, yeah, it's fine. No big deal.
Right. Yeah, I would win the Tour de France on a trainer too, because my weight is actually only 95 pounds, according to Zwift. So
goal weight Voldemort. I love it. Dylan, backwards hat Dylan, excuse me. Thank you so much for being here. If you can hear us and see us on YouTube, you should probably go find the Dylan Johnson channel and subscribe to it as well. It's got some of the most amazing content, scientific-based, researched content about cycling. He debunks myths. He gives you great training advice. He'll also someday maybe do a sock video and explain how great sock brightness is for adding watts. Maybe that's where you get your extra 100 watts. Exactly. Dylan, thanks for being here, buddy. This is episode 4 with us, and we really do appreciate your time this morning. Thanks, Jordan, for being here.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
episode 26, Backwards Hat Dylan. Stay tuned for an amazing thumbnail and YouTube title so we can get this subscriber thing rolling.
Yeah, perfect.
Later, boys.